calling you. The universe is calling me. It speaks both day and night. It's full of dark and light.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to another radio show. You're about to spend 2 fantastical hours, I hope, with me, Mark D'Antonio. My co-host Amanda is wonderful as always, but she's feeling a little under the weather tonight. But you know, she's a real trooper. She's hanging in anyway, and she'll be here and can chime in and watch for the chat and everything. So
if I make less sense tonight than usual, you'll know why.
Yeah, that's dedication, okay? Thank you, Amanda, and I'm really happy to have you here. Daryl, on the other hand, is actually feeling under the weather and unable to join us tonight. And so that's what happens. We're human. We break down physically. We have problems that make us less efficient as organic units, as Spock might say. So, but that said, we'll just hang out here and do what we're going to do tonight. And Daryl has, on the other hand, provided us with some really cool stories to talk about tonight. He, can't be here, but he provided us with something to talk about as well. So again, it's dedication. You see what I mean? It's all dedication. So what do we do here? You know what we do here. Sky Tour Radio is a wonderful discussion of astronomical, extraterrestrial life and topics such as those. And we spend a lot of time, sometimes conversating with each other to talk about things. And we have questions in the chat that are really interesting that many people ask. And you may just continue to add those in the chat. I'm all for it and all ready to answer. So if you like Sky Tour Radio, you're going to like Sky Tour Livestream, which is the companion Deep Sky Wonders tour that we do from our live observatories, plural. Notice I said that. We have an East Coast observatory, and we just finished our West Coast observatory in the Sonoran Desert. Yes, we did. Thanks to a lot of people in Phoenix. They were very, very helpful in getting this done. Among them, Marianne Robb, Tara Diolis. These people were getting, they were supervising the construction. I couldn't be there because of COVID, all right? And I didn't have it, but the travel restrictions made it impossible for me to go and then come back. So we did it remotely. So it was kind of weird. If you ever saw that show, Max Headroom, some years ago, Max Headroom was that computer-generated character who would every now and then show up and be part of this TV series. I felt like Max Headroom because every now and then Tara would call me and say, well, here's what's going on now, and would aim the camera with their phone toward what's going on at the observatory. And my head's on the screen, and I'm like Max Headroom. Ah, that looks wonderful. Ha-ha, So it was kind of fun. I really just thought it was unbelievably easy to do it this way. I couldn't believe how much easier I thought it was, afterwards. I thought it was going to be a bigger problem, and Sky Tour Livestream is a wonderful place. If you want to join us on YouTube, it's free. And we offer the photos afterwards. You can take them in regular resolution. But if you want to purchase some, well, that's not what we're about. But I can upscale them all to the size of billboards even, and provide them to you if you want to make wallpaper. I've got a potential client that actually asked if I could, help line the walls of their doctor's office with photos that I took with the Sky Tour Livestream. I was like, wow, well, sure. So, there's a lot of potential and a lot of things you can do with these photos. They're really beautiful shots. And right now, this observatory is called the John Zach Memorial Observatory. And I built that in memory of my friend John, who passed away from an insidious cancer some years ago. And we were building an internet-available observatory. And it went on hold for a number of years as I just lost steam thinking about it. It's like, I don't want to do it now. You do things like that because you're having fun with a friend, But then after I had surgery and I had to recover, As part of my recovery, I thought, I'm going to build an observatory, and I'm going to make the vision that John and I had originally come to life. And SkyTour Livestream was born. And that's how the East Coast Livestream works. It's in northwestern Connecticut. And what we do is we show you stellar birthplaces, remnants of dead and dying stars, glittering jewel boxes of stars, rich clusters of many, many tens and thousands of stars. And these wondrous phenomena that we show you, like these stellar nurseries where life itself may eventually arise, are some things that we look at all the time. We look at, like the other night, last night, it was a full moon, but because of our special filters we use, we could see faint nebula right near the full moon that were, being brightly illuminated by the full moon in regular light, but in these filters, we could actually see these beautiful nebulae in very much detail. It was so nice, We saw comets like Neowise, and we put together moving images of them over the course of a single night. You could see a comet moving through the sky. Really cool stuff, And it's also a stream where you are in charge if you want to be. Some of the objects we look at are because somebody asked to see it. And we did that very thing. One night, someone asked to see a particular nebula. We turned the telescope to that nebula, showed the nebula to this person, and then that person turned around and said, "Oh my gosh, I want to have a copy of that picture." And I said, "Absolutely." And we got it off to them. And now that picture rests with another bonus shot that I sent as well of the moon setting over Cactus in Arizona. And that shot now resides over her computer desk in, I think it's Bulgaria, actually, where she is. I'm not sure. But she really enjoyed the pictures, and she enjoys coming out to visit. So you see, that's what we're all about. One by one, we bring people into the scientific fold. They understand the universe a little better. And that's what SkyTour Radio is about, And if you want to read more about both SkyTour Livestream and hear more of the topics of SkyTour Radio, well, then you can buy our book, The Populated Universe. It's available in 3 formats for 3 different budgets on Amazon. And we'll soon have a audiobook of The Populated Universe as read by somebody near and dear to a lot of us. And I don't know if I want to tell people yet, Bill, who's Skywatcher, who's our producer, who's also here live with us, and Amanda. I know that she might be okay with it, but I gotta just wait. I'll just wait. If she sends a message, we can find out, right?
Well, I think she's listening, so if indeed it is a she.
It is indeed a she.
I know who it is, but
of course you do. And you know what? I can tell you this, guys. I wrote this book, and she did the first chapter as an audiobook. And when I listened to it, I couldn't stop listening to it. I mean, they were my words. I knew the words. If I read the book, it'd be boring kind of for me, right? As the author, I remember all of the things I said. But listening to how she was saying it and interpreting the words, it was magical. I couldn't believe what a beautiful job it was. So I'm telling you, the audiobook is definitely going to be a shining star. I can say that for sure. And I almost want to write another book just so she can read that too and do that for me as well. But she's that good. All right. And I know she's probably blushing out there, right, Amanda?
You have permission.
Would she say so?
Oh, yeah.
All righty. Okay, folks.
Big labor of love.
Yes, she's done that. She loves.
She's blushing already.
You know it. That's good. The reader is none other than Carol Carl, who is the Friday nights at 7 p.m. She hosts the show Behind the Obsidian Curtain right here on KGRAradio.com. You haven't heard a book read until you've heard it from her. Her cadence, her melodic voice is so on the mark. She emphasizes everything in the right place. And I actually couldn't stop listening to my own silly words, my own words. I couldn't stop listening. It was that good. It was incredible. And the weird thing is, she reads it in such a way so that you can actually get something out of it. You remember what she said. It doesn't become a drone in the background. It has a lot more meaning to it. I don't know. Maybe it's because I wrote it that I feel that way, but I don't think so, because I thought I was going to be kind of bored listening to an audiobook, of my own words. But listening to it, it sounded much different. Someone else's interpretation. And I loved it. It was really good. So that book will be available too. We'll make sure. So that'll be, instead of 3 formats, it'll be 4 different formats for 4 different budgets. So hopefully that can be, sometime soon. I'm not trying to put pressure on her. I want her to do it at her own speed, Now, Bill is with us. Bill, can you come on the air for a moment?
Yes, I am
here.
Here
He is. Bill Skywatcher, a friend of mine for many years, and also an amazing producer for KGRA. I don't give you enough credit, but here I am. I'm going to do it right now. Okay. I hereby give you credit.
Well, wait. We also have to say that because I know you're going to bring it up, or you may not, but I will. Part of Sky Tour Livestream was kind of my doing with the help of our good friend Keith.
Yeah, okay. You're beating me to the punch, but that's okay.
And also, getting you on KGRA. I thought it was a great idea to bring your content to KGRA for a show, and soon thereafter, it went from 1 hour to 2 hours due to the high demand and popularity of the show.
Well, I'll give credit to the listeners for that one.
Oh, yeah.
They made that happen. They get the credit there. I mean, Bill did the maneuvering, but it was definitely you guys in the audience that made it happen.
And I got to tell people a little thing here. I'm gonna just delete those lines now in my script because everything Bill just said, I had written in my script, and he's laughing, I'm sure, because he knows that when I start to say something, sometimes he'll finish my sentence on me.
Oh yeah, I have a bad habit.
Chase him. I was like, "What are you? Get out of here!" And I run after him. I did that to him several times.
Yes, you did it in front of your house. But I have an idea. If Amanda comes for Pine Bush next year, I think that we need to take a photo with her standing near the observatory.
Oh, that's Sky Tour Livestream, and that's perfect.
We need to do that for sure.
I wanted to put this past time she came, and then we just didn't make it. We didn't get it to happen.
Oh, well, we're going to make that happen. And if Daryl, if you're listening, we all hope that you're feeling better, buddy.
Absolutely. And I'd like to have Daryl make it too and have him stand in front of it. Now, it might be easier for him to go to the Arizona site.
That's true.
And do photos in front of Sky Tour Livestream West. Because, people hear my voice and they think that I'm Sky Tour Radio, and most of you know that that's not true. Sky Tour Radio was built on the shoulders of Bill Skywatcher, Keith from P&K Space Imaging, Daryl Mason, and Amanda. Okay, these are all the people that helped me get to where I'm going, and especially on the airwaves. And so if it wasn't for Keith and Bill, I wouldn't be streaming. If it wasn't for Bill, I wouldn't be on KGRA. And if it wasn't for Daryl and Amanda, Amanda and Daryl would get mad at me if I put his name first. He said that to me before, remember? He's such a polite gentleman.
He is.
If it wasn't for Amanda and Daryl, Sky Tour Radio probably wouldn't have the following it has. So, that's what we're all about. We're kind of a tight-knit little family, right? So that's what it's all about here, And
now, I'm going to put you on the spot now that I got you on the air with me, on with you.
Connection's a little rough. I got sunspots. What's that?
Here we go. Have you made it official yet? Have you discussed it about the second pier and who will be occupying the second pier in Sky Tour West?
Well, you are part of a rebel alliance and a traitor.
Okay, well, actually, I haven't made it official with them yet. Okay, but I would very much like to make it known who's going to join us in there. I also want to give, since we're talking about it now, I did have a Sky Tour West update, but I'll just go through it now. Obviously, the observatory is finished. The equipment will be installed at the end of this month and through the first 2 weeks of December, and we're going to go live in December, probably the middle of the first week, I would expect. And then we're going to initially use HughesNet for the internet, which is slow. But then, guess what we're going to use? We're going to use Starlink, the bane of astronomers. Wow. It's going to provide superior internet service, and it will be up 74.1% of the time in our desert location.
How ironic is that?
Isn't it? Isn't it ironic? Yeah.
The worst nightmare of astronomers is Starlink, and you're going to be using it to get the stream to work properly.
It's going to be the thing that makes it function a lot more efficiently.
That's awesome, though.
I'll deal with a few streaks, right, Amanda?
Oh.
You know?
Well, sometimes it's fun when we catch little streaks in our pictures.
Yeah, the satellites. You know, and we can figure out what they are based on the length of the streak and the length of the exposure. We can calculate what the orbit is and figure out what satellite it is, you know?
But eventually, won't you have to be timing your images like in between these satellites?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly right. Now, the observatory is going to have 3 piers. Wow. One for us, for Sky Tour West, and one for this other streaming group. And then one for us again, that's going to be a wide field scope. I already have the wide field scope, and I just need to get the mount and do the automation for it, which should not be a problem because I did it for this observatory. It'll take me probably a couple of days just to write that system up. And we'll be able to then do these beautiful wide field shots with a 5-inch refractor. Now, that may not mean much to you guys, but when you buy a typical refractor at like a Walmart, that's like a less than 2.5 inches in diameter tube, all lenses. That's a refracting telescope, no mirrors, okay? But if you go to a 5-inch, now you go to a different class of instrument, and we will be able to get some imagery that will show us phenomenal detail, especially in the desert, you know? So here in Connecticut, we do have some light pollution. We do have Milky Way here. I mean, as bad as Connecticut looks on the sky brightness maps, okay, and that brightness is measured by something called the Bortle scale, B-O-R-T-L-E, Bortle. And it's measured from like 1 to 9, where 9 is horrific and 1 is beautiful. Now, we here are at Bortle 4.5, 5 maybe. Out in the desert, we're Bortle 2.
Wow.
And there to the east, you can see what we call the light dome. There's the lights of distant Phoenix that are, you can see those from almost anywhere down there. But it's a low dome that just takes up some of the eastern sky. And we arranged the observatory so that our southern exposure has nothing all the way to Mexico, and our western exposure has nothing all the way to California, and the northern exposure has nothing all the way to the Grand Canyon in that direction. So with a little bit of, the western edges of Prescott in there. But we're 65 miles west of the city of Phoenix. And so those are the only lights. Now, because the sky rises in the east and sets in the west, if we see something in the east we want to see, we're not going to miss it because we have the entire season to catch it. You know, and the entire night as it rotates further toward the west, we'll eventually be able to get it. So that's the right angle, the right orientation for such an observatory. So you have nothing in the south and nothing in the west. Now, as Daryl has said before, down in the southern sky there, we're going to be able to see one of the most spectacular, if not the most spectacular, globular clusters ever. And that's Omega Centauri in the constellation of Centaurus. And it'll be about, I think from where I'm going to be looking, I think I'm going to have it, it'll be about 11 degrees, 12 degrees above the horizon, maybe a little more at maximum. And I calculated the wall height of the observatory and the height of the telescope on its pier and wrote a program to actually make sure that we'll be able to see down to 10 degrees above the horizon when that roof rolls off. And I got to tell you, it really rolls nicely.
Speaking of that, Mark.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know
go ahead,
me. You know my habit of interrupting. You know that. But you bring up the retractable. You brought up the retractable roof.
Yes.
Have you considered? Obviously, you have. The environment, the desert, sand, maybe some weather monitorization, observational equipment to make sure that the the cover, the retractable roof is covered when, harsh conditions evolve and are going on. So have you gone through all that process?
Yeah. The design, currently, if you look in the observatory, if you walked in the observatory with the roof on, you'd see daylight out of every side. You'd see through the rails, and at each end, where the rails are elevating the roof, you have a 2-inch gap all the way along the front and all the way along the west side, all the way along the east side, because the roof rolls from the west toward the east. Now, you'd say, well, that's no good, and you're absolutely right. Everything can get in there, from critters to sand, and they have dust storms out there with winds that can approach 80 miles an hour. So how in the heck are we going to protect that? Well, we have a plan in place to do that, because when the roof goes on, it's going to have a system, a soft system that it's going to roll onto. So that's going to kill the western gap. The western gap is going to be plugged by this thing, kind of like some kind of a like the bottom of a garage has that rubber seal, that rubber kind of thing that kind of squishes a little when the garage closes. You can imagine that the roof is going to close and squish this little seal at that end. And then on the sides, where you have these rails, we're going to have skirts attached to the roof that hang down over the roof by about 18 inches all the way down the side. And they're going to be very close to the sides of the building. And that's going to prevent dust from getting too far up in there. 18 inches is just about the calculated amount we need to prevent dust from going up and into the rails. Now, does it mean there won't be any in there? Well, of course not. Dust finds a way. Mm-hmm. Just like life finds a way. But we're going to
amp there. Is it dust finds a way? I'm like, that's not the quote.
Yeah, I know. I got it. You're right. But the dust will find a way in if we're not careful. But that's why the telescope is going to have some rather interesting add-ons that are going to prevent it. Now, when you go out to use a telescope, folks, you know how this is. The first thing you got to do is take the cover off the telescope. Everything that has to happen in that observatory has to be done remotely. And initially, it's going to be done from 2,500 miles away.
I seen you test that. That was incredible.
Yeah, and to do that, I had to build a circuit that will basically an arm that holds this cover onto the telescope, and then you activate a system that opens that cover and moves it out of the way of the telescope. And it's a motor called a stepper motor, which goes a certain number of steps. All right, each step being a certain distance. And so 3,300 steps will take it off the telescope and down out of the way. And in 3,300 back the other way, we'll close it. And so I have the ability to nudge that either way within the program I wrote. And so that allows the cover to be on there at all times and properly sealing the end of the telescope. Now, there's a lot to consider with all of this. And so, having a remote telescope is not just, let's just whip something together. There's a lot going on. There's a lot to do. And telescopes are a funny thing. This telescope wasn't cheap, okay? It was several $1,000s. But I want to make it clear that didn't have to come out of my pocket. It came from the GoFundMe that we started for this observatory. I am eternally grateful to the people, and especially the people that own the land that actually are allowing me and donated that little portion of the land to me so that I could put the observatory on it, and to the main benefactors for this, And because of that, the observatory name out there is going to be called the Maudlin Hain Observatory. And we can talk about the benefactors at another time. But this isn't the Mark D'Antonio Observatory. This is the labor of many people's involvements. And I'm just a facilitator. That's how I view it. I'm just a facilitator to show you these beautiful things in the sky because I have a rabid interest. I have rabies. Okay, I do. It's rabies of astronomy. I'm rabid about that. And most of you know I wanted to be an astronomer since age 9. That never changed. I never wavered, and I did it. That's what my degree is in. And so, as you know, that means I don't make a lot of money in astronomy, because if you want to be making money, well, you got to be a doctor or a high-end, a bioengineer or something like that, or a lawyer or something like that. But see, none of that stuff was my thing. I wanted to be an astronomer. I looked up at night when I was 9, and I felt homesick. I felt, wow, I belong there. I think I told you my space box story. Amanda knows it. Bill knows it. And some of you know it. But suffice it to say that I wrote a space station plan to NASA when I was 9 years old. Okay, 9.5 actually. And I wanted them to consider this as a space station that they could create. And I was very proud of my space station plan. I had carbon dioxide scrubbers that would take the carbon dioxide out of the air and clean it up for the astronauts on board and all this stuff. And I created artificial gravity. And I had greenhouses, all that stuff. As a kid, I figured out how to do that because I went to the library every single day and took out the adult level books, much of which I couldn't understand. But I took notes because that's what you had to do then. And I came back and wrote more. Well, then sometime later, I sent it off to NASA. Ta-da! My big space station plan, I call it. And it went to NASA. And 3 weeks went by, I heard nothing. And I thought, oh, man. And my mother was saying, now, don't worry. They can't read everything. So don't be upset if nothing happens. And, of course, that upset me. So I was like, oh, man. Put a lot of effort into that. And back then, you didn't have a file that you could just print out again. I wrote this out by hand. I drew pictures by hand. Well, I ended up coming home from school one day, and my mother met me at the door and said, okay, listen up. There's a box for you in the living room, and it's from NASA. And I was like, I almost shoved her onto the floor. I got so excited. I just pushed her out of the way to get in there, and there it was, a big NASA emblem on this box. And it was a giant box to me, okay? And I ripped it open, and I'm sorry, Bill and Amanda, you've heard this before, and for those that have heard it, I apologize. I'll try to make it shorter. And there was all kinds of photos and model kits and brochures, cloth mission patches from early missions to space. And, I mean, to a little kid who wanted to be an astronomer, that was gold. And I asked my mother for a magic marker. Well, I kind of screamed at it. Mom, give me a magic marker right now, please. She runs in with a magic marker. What happened? I go, I just need it. And I wrote space box on the side, and I put little stars and planets, and I decorated the box. And then I went through this box. But on top of everything was a manila folder, an envelope, actually. And I opened it up, and there was my space station plan. And I pulled it out, and there was a letter on the front, and I was a kid. I didn't read all of it, but basically it was, thank you for submitting this. You got a great future in the space program. Stick with it, blah, blah, blah. Signed the scientist's name. I didn't even notice the scientist's name at first. Well, then I went through the plan, and I saw on every single page of the plan, he had checked very carefully each page that it had gone through. And his checks were in reverse. You know how you do check marks? Well, he did them in reverse. So some people do that. Some people do the reverse check mark kind of thing. And he did that. And that was always odd to me because I didn't know that. I never saw that at that time. Well, then he wrote comments like all around on the pages where I wrote like on the carbon dioxide scrubbers. He said, fantastic idea. We used something like this on the Apollo mission. This is a great idea. And I thought, a NASA scientist thought I had a great idea. Holy cow. I was so excited. And then I get to the end, and he says, you did a phenomenal job. He wrote in notes, handwritten in notes, in pen. He wrote on there by hand. I'm touching that thinking, he wrote this. A scientist wrote on this paper about something I did, and I'm rubbing it, feeling the indent of the pen on the paper, thinking, wow, I can almost feel him doing it. It's like a really weird thing. And so then I get to the end. And he says, you keep up the good work. You have a fine future in the space program. And he goes, so I forget what he said. But then he signed it with his name. It was Bert Lee. And I was like, wow, incredible. So I put it aside. And over time, My space box had its contents spread to the winds. The bumper stickers long since crinkled and lost their stickiness and fell off my mom's car, who didn't want them there in the first place. And then a lot of things happened. Okay, so anyway, and I know that I realize incidentally that I've gone past my first break here, so I apologize for that for you listeners if you need to run away for a minute. But I'm into it, so I can't stop at the moment. But I'll finish in a little bit here. So anyway, in later years, all the model kits got made, the parts broken, lost. The cloth mission patches, I gave away a lot of them because to me they were just cloth mission patches. Had I known that today they would be very much priceless in some cases, then I might have not spread them to my friends and so forth. But then I ended up thinking about that scientist who had done this for me, because it was his fault, if you will, that I became an astronomer. It was his fault. That's right. And it was the best thing I could ever, say of anybody. It was their fault, because I absolutely changed my life tremendously, all for the better. And so I looked them up. And Bert Lee is actually the chief engineer at JPL for all outer space robotic missions. He oversaw Curiosity, Spirit, and Opportunity.
Wow.
Dawn mission. He oversaw New Horizons to Pluto. He was the engineer in charge. That was the scientist. His name is also known as Gentry Lee. That's a nickname, and or maybe a middle name. I'm not sure.
Mark, is he still involved with NASA?
He's JPL, Jet Propulsion Lab.
Okay, JPL. Pasadena. Have you ever tried to reach out to him and get him on the show? I think that would be phenomenal if you can get him on and say, you know something? I was that 9-year-old kid back in the day.
I did talk to him about it, actually, because it was about 5 years ago. I actually contacted Gentry Lee for the first time since I was 9 years old.
Wow.
And I mentioned all this, and he wrote back. He wrote back rather enthusiastically, actually, within just a few hours. And he said, wow, he goes, I don't remember you at all. He goes, but that is what I would have done. That's exactly what I would do. And so I said, well, you are the reason that I became an astronomer. And he really liked that. And he said, well, let's keep in touch, And so I guess that's a possibility, and I'd love to get him on to talk about the new missions, the 2020 rover, Perseverance, and so forth. I think that it would be great. So I think I will contact him again and ask him if he would like to come on.
I think that would be great. And I think we all owe Bert Lee all of our appreciation of you getting involved in the field as an astronomer. So we all have to thank him as well.
Well, don't forget, okay, I know I've said this before. People know this. Yes, I'm an astronomer, but guess what? To get where I am, I stood on the shoulders of giants who came before me. So, it's not me. But I'm just reflecting their tutelage.
But you know what? You can be the inspiration for those 9-year-olds right now when they watch Sky Tour live stream. Or,
absolutely. And
you know what I mean?
I'll definitely hold them up on my shoulders, too.
Exactly.
My shoulders aren't as tall as Gentry Lee's, okay? My shoulders aren't remotely as tall as Carl Sagan's, okay? They're not nearly as tall as Avi Loeb, okay? Not nearly, okay? And they don't even come a shade close to Stephen Hawking's, right? I'm not even in the same league as any of those other folks that I mentioned, in my view. So my challenge has been to bring astronomy to people in a way that they can understand it, in a way that they can enjoy it,
and with humor.
And I think that's really cool, right?
Well, I guess we both can't get in trouble along with Amanda to go late to our break, but I think now may be a good time to get to that break, Mark.
Hey, folks, you know what? I'm thinking maybe now's a good time to get to that break. This is Mark D'Antonio with Bill Skywatcher and poor Amanda, who's a little under the weather, but joining us anyway because that's the trooper she is. We love that girl, Bill. We just love that girl.
Absolutely.
But we'll be back right after this.
Hi, folks. It's troubling times, and fear is pushing emotions, which in turn pushes health the wrong direction. Do you ever get an ache because life is uneasy? Try Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. Life Change Tea works on your digestive tract, helping to move food through quicker and comfortably so your health is spot on. Life Change Tea may not help with world issues, but it will help with your digestive issues. A glass a day helps keep the intruders away. So, change your life today. Log on to getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. If your health game is off, get on by ordering Life Change Tea. Getthetea.com. And while you're on our site, look around at the great non-GMO organic supplements. And if you're a sales shopper, go to our specials page and see what's for you. I've been drinking the tea for 12 years, and I'm sure glad for its health benefits. Again, that's getthetea.com. Getthetea.com. The tea that makes you go.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about Angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. After just 1 week of taking Angioprim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in Angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com, or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll free at 945-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. That's 945-882-7221. Or go to the website angioprim.com.
Folks, this is very important information. What's to be said about CBD? AncientLifeOil.com. Our CBD is made from hemp and has 0.003 THC, which means this wonderful product won't get you high, no matter what amount you take. What does CBD do for the body? My hands are tied. But you can Google CBD benefits and be astounded. When you're finished reading, you'll want to log on to AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com and purchase. Life is good when you feel good. People are tired of pain. People are asking for non-GMO organic products to help them with you fill in the blank. Legal in 49 states, and again, our CBD is made from hemp. Ancient Life Oil is about helping people one by one by one. If you wonder how good the product is, the CEO takes it every day without miss. AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Have a great day.
Your alternative talk radio contact, The Planet, KGRARadio.com.
Hey, can you believe it? I can't believe welcome back to SkyTour Radio. This is Mark, and poor Amanda's still under the weather, but she's here with us. Amanda, you hanging in there?
Oh, all right. I'm feeling better already.
Oh, I'd love hearing that. Fantastic. And we, of course, have Bill Skywatcher with us, our esteemed producer. But, Bill has a way of just taking a conversation down paths you might not normally go. But usually it makes it all worth it. And after we went to the break, he said to me, I got something to ask you. And he was going to tell me, and I said, don't tell me. I want to hear it on the air. Now, I'm not sure that was a good idea.
You ready for it?
I'm gonna let him ask. Okay, yeah, go for it. What?
So many jokes here, but I'll be professional.
No. It's actually in relation to something Mark was working on in tandem with Douglas Trumbull. Is it possible on the existing site at SkyTour West to maybe work on, well, it's not UFO Talk 2 now, but to maybe use that area because of the dark skies to do some type of monitoring of activity above?
Yeah, you kind of read my mind here, Bill. I've actually mentioned to Doug that we're doing this out west, and it's definitely a great remote site. Now, because the bandwidth is so low initially with HughesNet, the internet service that's in the desert, it's satellite internet. So you're used to, download speeds that are pretty high. Well, download doesn't matter because when you stream, you're sending out. So you're going what we call upstream. All right. The upstream speed is 3 megabits per second. Now, what does that mean? It means that you have a fairly slow, it's about 400K a second. So to send a meg will take you just over a second. And if you have a screen that has 3 meg of information on it, well, you can see that it's going to basically take you several seconds just to send a screen. So we have to streamline what we do initially so that we can, take advantage of the dark sky location, but not compromise the ability of SkyTour Livestream to produce a beautiful experience for people. But that's with HughesNet. Once Starlink comes around, then we will be able to use the internet from space, and that will be very different. We're looking very forward to that, to be honest with you. I mean, it's going to be, I didn't know how available it was. I studied the Starlink availability diagrams and went through everything, calculations, and we will have 74.1% uptime. That means that maybe we'll be able to be up with SkyTour Livestream from, say, midnight to 3 a.m. Arizona time, which would be, here, 9 p.m. to midnight, No, it wouldn't. What am I saying? It would be, let's say 9 to midnight there is midnight to 3 here.
Right.
Because I'm in the East. Okay. Sorry, I was standing on my head and it was all backwards. So, yeah. So we're hoping to get some very fast speeds out of it. And when we get to those fast speeds, Bill, to answer your question in a long, drawn-out way, then we're going to be able to add more equipment to the observatory. That's when we're going to be adding the second pier with our other streamers, and that's when we're going to be adding the third pier with our other telescope and our other equipment.
Excellent. So Douglas, Doug is on board potentially in the future to do this.
Oh, of course he is. He's absolutely on board.
Excellent. Well, I just want to let you know that Galaxy is not 9 years old. He's 46, and you are an inspiration to him.
Really?
Yeah, he just mentioned that in the chat. So I just wanted to pass that along to you.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you, Galaxy.
So I guess you're never too young and never too old. The infamous Discord chat.
Yeah, I can't get into it. I've tried many times.
Trust me. Believe me, this producer hears it quite a bit.
Yeah.
So
Galaxy, thank you. That's very kind of you to say that. I'm humbled. I can't tell you how many people I know who just spend their lives looking out of their windshield straight ahead at the road, like you're supposed to, okay, when you're driving, but they walk around looking down or straight ahead. They never look up. Now, I don't.
Worse now with cell phones. Now you're looking straight down.
Yeah, thank you. That's very, very good. Yeah, looking straight down. So it's really quite a problem, to think about that, because how do you convince people that looking at their phones is not a good idea? Well, I do have a way to bridge that, and actually, I can't go to this amazing MUFON boot camp, the Mutual UFO Network boot camp, which is, I think, November 6th through the 8th out in Phoenix. I was scheduled to be a teacher out there doing the astronomy segments, but and it's a boot camp that's put on by the Phoenix MUFON. I'll talk more about that in a second. But I can't go because I have to be filming for most of the month of November on a new 2-hour documentary on a major network. I guess I'm not allowed to say the network, I guess, from what they said. So enough about that. But the Phoenix MUFON, that's probably one of the finest operated chapters of MUFON in the entire country. Okay, Stacy Wright manages that chapter. She does a phenomenal job.
Mm-hmm.
and the people that work with her do a phenomenal job. When I was putting up the observatory, she called me and said, "How can we help? Can we put together a work crew to come help you in the desert?" Now, she didn't have to do that. She didn't have to offer that, but she did, because that's who Stacy Wright is. Phoenix MUFON, right? Well, that's because as a person, she's like that. As a person who manages the Phoenix MUFON group with the other folks within Phoenix MUFON that help her out, she's doing a phenomenal job. And I think they have the best business model, the best approach, and the best capability to get people trained for looking at unidentified aerial phenomena, UAPs. And so to that end, I've always said I will always teach in the boot camp. I was scheduled to go, but I couldn't go because of this other commitment, and it's unfortunate. But you can reach her if you want to talk to her about it, and you can reach her at Stacy at PhoenixMUFON.com. That's Stacy with an E, STACEY at PhoenixMUFON.com. Tell her I sent you, and she'll probably delete your email. No, I'm just kidding. She won't do that. But they've done a good job. So I think that, for several days, you actually go out in the desert and you do hands-on activities. And you learn about extraterrestrial life, UAP studies, astronomy, and it's all hands-on experiments and doing training. It's just incredible. So check it out when you get a chance. I'm sure that there'll be room out there for the next year's, and I think that's really cool. Now, before I move forward into some of the topics I want to talk about tonight, I do have to ask you, Bill, if you've got anything else that you want to ask me.
Absolutely, I do. I actually have an idea that I've never actually brought up to you, but I think it might be really useful and helpful during your live streams.
Ooh.
And this might really put Amanda to work like she needs it.
StreamYard?
No, it has nothing to do with StreamYard.
Okay.
It maybe if you, because you always, I know how you are. You're well prepared. So is Amanda. So is Daryl. If you make an outline, and go into specific details on the topic that you're going to discuss on an upcoming episode of Sky Tour Livestream, maybe make a companion guide, a PDF, so people can actually follow the topic that you're going to be discussing and get into more detail about that topic. In other words, it's like a companion that while they're looking at the stream, they also have all the notes and guides and even some photos, illustrations about some of the things they can expect to see during that live Sky Tour live stream.
You know what? That's a really good idea. I have not thought of that. I thought of creating what we call observing lists, and I had them in the past, but when I changed over to the new way of operating the observatory, it did not include observing lists, and that's a great idea.
You know why,
it
Mark?
Because take a lot of effort.
A lot of people, when I tell people out during my streams, I said, if you want to go and have an educational experience from an astronomer, a learning experience where it's fun and people can follow it, like you explained earlier, by breaking it down, also putting some humor in there, making it lighthearted at times. I think it would be great to put that out there because now people can actually have a collection of these moving forward and have all the different episodes of Sky Tour, and they can actually collect a collage, so to speak, a portfolio of your Sky Tour live streams in a personal way. That's
actually a really good idea.
I never.
Okay, hired.
Amanda, get to work.
And then she got her hand on her forehead going, "Oh, Bill, come on. What are you doing to me?"
I want to thank Amanda for everything she's doing.
She's doing a lot for you.
Yeah, and KGRA and for Sky Tour Livestream and everything else she does with her ninja favorite stuff and everything that she does. So we love you, Amanda. And I definitely want to say we love Marianne Robb. She's just an amazing person. And she's also been very helpful in all your endeavors out there, Mark, as well.
She has, and she's going to be starting a new show with Chris DiPerno here soon on KGRA.
I can't speak on that.
You can't? Why not?
Okay, well,
I'll leave it to you,
Hopefully
Amanda.
I can, 'cause
Yeah, I'm not saying
we're
anything.
going live Thursday. So I think people should know now.
Is it this Thursday?
That's what I'm hearing. We're going to be going this Thursday.
Well, you
It's,
might as well break
it's called
the
I
news.
Detective. It's a police show by cops, for cops, about cops. And it's going to be really, really interesting.
Yeah, I heard about it in the last couple of days. She was telling me something about it, and I asked her, "Well, so can I listen?" And she goes, "You're not a cop."
You got to flash your badge at the door to get in.
She was kidding me, of course.
No, it's of course everyone is welcome, but it's going to be an incredible new show for KGRA, and I hope everyone shows up. I believe it's going to be 6 p.m. Eastern Thursday, November the 5th. So stay tuned for more on that.
Yeah, that should be really exciting. I'm actually looking forward to it. I'm planning on being there the first show. You got to hear it.
Please do. Yeah, please do.
Got to hear it. Plus, you're helping on that show as well, Amanda, aren't you not? Yeah. That's fantastic. So, I mean, as you can tell, KGRA, we're kind of all a family here. We kind of all know each other and good people. Every time we see each other at conferences, which of course didn't happen this year, but will next year.
Well, we had kind of a little fun, you and I, at Pine Bush.
Oh, yeah. Well, Pine Bush was different because
It was.
I was the only live speaker at Pine Bush, Linda Zimmerman and Chris DiPerno, right? Was it Chris?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was
okay,
Chris.
so Linda and Chris spoke at Pine Bush via Zoom, but I spoke live. And I did that because I don't know, I'm kind of old fashioned. I feel that, people are driving out to a conference, there should be someone there that they can actually see. Mm-hmm. And I know Linda nor Chris could actually physically make it that night.
Right.
So I said, okay, I will make it. I will go because I want to, I think it's important that people, go and see people that are there. But, I know that it's really hard with all this. So I have to say that the Pine Bush Conference in Crawford, New York was went off quite well. It was really nicely done. Lance, who manages everything there at this time, he did a phenomenal job getting it ready. He had big, tall aliens there. It was decorated so nicely. He had food. It's really a very nice job. Nice little mini conference.
And it went off without a hitch.
Without a hitch. And you were running all the sound.
Yes.
So
but I have to
think
say,
it went off without a hitch because of your involvement.
well, Mark, this is a true story. Mark and I were outside. Actually, there was a group of folks out there, and it was during the break, intermission. And Mark comes walking outside. And this is how Mark is. For those who don't know, who's never seen Mark at a conference, you should. Because first of all, his presentations are exceptional. And Linda's and Chris's were excellent as well. But so Mark, there's a group, I'm talking to them, and then Mark comes outside, and then I just told them, hey, this is Mark D'Antonio. He's going to be speaking later. And then I left Mark with them. Mark engages with everybody, and at the end of his presentation, he was standing at the mic, and he had a line of people waiting to ask him questions, and Mark took the time to be there for at least a half hour and speak to every person there. That is how Mark D'Antonio is. Like I said, I'm not being biased when I say this. He is one of the best speakers, and I say speakers, presenters that you could see a PowerPoint, and he goes through all the details. It is phenomenal, Mark, what you do. And I highly suggest if Mark is in the area, in your area doing a conference, go check him out and say hello to him, and he'll say hello back and more.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's true. I mean, saying hello to people to me is the smallest thing you can do, but it's actually very meaningful both to me and to the people you're saying it to. Like in SkyTour live stream, except for some of the streams where we've had like 4,000 people watching at the same time. Sometimes we have a relatively smaller group, like we'll have 40, 50, 60, whatever, and I'll say hi to every single person that comes in. On the air. I mean, through the stream, and I say hello and I engage them because I figure, and my view is, if they're coming to spend time with me, I will recognize that they're here and say, wow, and I mean this, I'm really grateful they came. And I tell them I'm grateful that they came.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, right? I mean, it's, you know, sometimes it gets in the way of what I'm talking about. If I say, and this is a planetary nebula. Oh, hey, hi there. How you doing? You know, and I'll say hi to someone who just joined. But I know that I've heard people comment that, you know, I didn't expect you to say hi to me. And like, oh, sorry, I wasn't trying to embarrass you. Oh, no, it was really cool. Yeah, whatever. You know, but that's sort of how I am. So if you come to the stream, be prepared to be greeted. You know, like I'm like a Walmart greeter, but sort of like an Astromart greeter. You know, kind of an Astro greeter, you know, that kind of thing. But yeah, so, you know, it's pretty cool.
So what are you going to be discussing in the next hour? And then Bill's going to fall back and listen and enjoy it with all the listeners as well. What's coming up in the next hour?
Oh, well, the next hour we're going to talk about a story provided by Daryl Mason, who's, like I said, he's under the weather, but he provided us with something really interesting to talk about. And we have some stories from our own Amanda, and I call it Amanda Astronomy.
Nice. I call it
that?
Commander Amanda.
Wow.
Astronomy. That's right.
The nicknames I generate.
Yeah, right.
Huh?
Well,
yeah, Amanda Astronomy.
With that,
yeah, so
go ahead.
Yeah, we actually have to go to a break here pretty soon now already. Again. All right. So I guess we'll do that then. And when we come back, we will kick in with our next set of stories that we're going to bring out for you. If you guys like this last hour, let us know. If you didn't like this last hour, it's Bill's fault. And that's a joke, obviously. But we'll be right back. This is Mark D'Antonio with Amanda Curran and our producer, Bill Skywatcher. We'll be right back.
Hi, folks. It's troubling times, and fear is pushing emotions, which in turn pushes health the wrong direction. Do you ever get an ache because life is uneasy? Try Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com. Life Change Tea works on your digestive tract, helping to move food through quicker and comfortably so your health is spot on. Life Change Tea may not help with world issues, but it will help with your digestive issues. A glass a day helps keep the intruders away. So, change your life today. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. If your health game is off, get on by ordering Life Change Tea. GetTheTea.com. And while you're on our site, look around at the great non-GMO organic supplements. And if you're a sales shopper, go to our specials page and see what's for you. I've been drinking the tea for 12 years, and I'm sure glad for its health benefits. Again, that's GetTheTea.com. GetTheTea.com. The tea that makes you go. Please listen. Now is not the time to fear. When your immune system is strong, shields up. You have very little worries. If your immune system is compromised, you're susceptible to all viruses. I say shields up and no fear. Try Heart Love from GetTheTea.com. Heart Love has a special ingredient called allicin. It comes from the healing part of the garlic plant. No garlic breath, no garlic leaking out your pores, just pure immune-building ingredients that gets your shields up. Heart Love is a unique blend of herbs that loves to build you up. Google garlic and know the benefits. One Heart Love pill is equal to 20 cloves of garlic. 20 cloves! Shields up. You've heard of our Life Change Cleansing Tea at GetTheTea.com. Now try Heart Love. And by the way, take your blood pressure and watch weekly what happens. So here's how to purchase. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com and build your shields. That's GetTheTea.com. Mention Ray in the coupon code and hit apply and receive free shipping.
The Liberator Rocket Heater will heat your home for free. The highly efficient Liberator Rocket Heater has no moving parts. It's safe and strong, constructed of quarter-inch steel. So like all things made in the USA, it's built to last. Uses any kind of wood, sticks, even scrap in its gravity-fed firebox. And it heats workshops, homes, garages, outbuildings, industrial areas, and barns. Watch the video of this blast furnace stove in action. Visit RocketHeater.com. That's RocketHeater.com.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
Hey, welcome back to Sky Tour Radio. It's Mark D'Antonio here with Amanda Curran. And at times you might hear from Bill, our esteemed producer, who chimes in. He was in for the last hour hanging with us. And he's going to sit back now as I zip on through some topics here for tonight. One of the things I wanted to talk about with you guys is that, Amanda and Daryl provide information and stories for me at times, and tonight is no different. Daryl gave us a great story I'm going to talk about shortly, and Amanda has a bunch of stories that she loves to research and provide information for. So when we do her stories, we call it Amandastronomy, okay? Amandastronomy, so just so you know, it's a special term for what she provides. But because Daryl has been under the weather and not able to join us tonight, I did want to talk about his contributing story. And it's about something called pole reversal, otherwise known as geomagnetic reversal. And that's a thing. And what it is the Earth has a magnetic field, and it's created by movements of magma deep in the outer core of the Earth. It's basically like liquid molten iron that's rolling around. It's being caused to move by the rotation of the Earth. And the central core of the Earth, the very center of the core, is solid from the high pressure. And even though it's hot, it's solid. And this liquid molten iron, slightly farther away, circulates around that solid iron nickel core. And these are conductive liquids, okay? This conductive liquid molten iron. And so you get charges, electrical charges building up because of this interaction between the solid core and this liquid iron rolling around it from the Earth's rotation. And those electrical charges generate a magnetic field, because every electric field will have a magnetic field associated with it. And on a planetary scale, you end up with a planet that has a gigantic magnetic field. So, iron conducts electricity, and so that electrical charge in turn will create a magnetic field. And this is known as the Earth dynamo. Okay, it's a dynamo. Now imagine a giant bar magnet with a north and south pole, and it's inside the Earth, around the core, at the core of the Earth. And magnets create a field known as a dipole. Okay, dipole. That's two poles, north and south. If you cut a bar magnet in half, guess what you've got? You have two more sets of poles. You have a north and south on the smaller chunk and a north and south on the other chunk. Okay, you can't have one pole without the other, although the search for a magnetic monopole has been researched that was ongoing, but they're generally dipoles. So what does that mean for us? We have a north and south pole in our dipole magnetic field. And most of that field, the great bulk of that field, is confined inside the Earth near the outer core. Okay? Most of that magnetic force is in that core region. But some of that magnetic field, a very small part of it, reaches tenuously out from that to form a sheath around the planet. Okay? And that makes compasses work, for instance. And over time, the Earth's rotation and the nature of that liquid iron movement around the outer core can alter the alignment of that dipole, alter the alignment of that north and south field, okay? And so the dipole can change its orientation. Now, for us at the surface, we see this alteration as a change in the magnetic field, so north won't point exactly north anymore, but might drift somewhat. Maybe it's drifting toward another direction, a little bit toward the east, west, or to the south a little bit, okay, away from the north direction, and vice versa. Same with the South Pole. And there's some popular but very bad science out there I should say non-science or nonsense, that suggests that the Earth will, quote, flip on its axis, causing great earthquakes and devastation, unquote. That is simply not true, and it's a complete misunderstanding of what actually is doing the flipping. Okay, it's the magnetic field lines which are flipping, not the whole planet. That's never happened and never will. Okay, so if you're in the northern hemisphere, for instance, and you see stars of the northern hemisphere, okay, you will never just suddenly see the southern hemisphere stars. Earth doesn't flip, quote unquote. Okay, but what's flipping is this invisible magnetic field. And as I said, north and south will change positions, but not the planet. Okay, and this geomagnetic reversal is something that's happened quite a few times, actually, many times in the history of our planet. And we see the record of these reversals in ocean sediments and lava crystals from the Mid-Atlantic Spreading Ridge, for instance. I'll give you an example. The Mid-Atlantic Spreading Ridge is an area where new lava reaches the surface underwater, and it spreads out in both directions from this giant division between the Atlantic plate. Okay, and that Mid-Atlantic Spreading Ridge, this lava comes out, and as it cools, remember it's highly magnetic material. So as it's cooling, the magnetic lines will influence, the magnetic lines of the Earth's magnetic field will influence which direction these crystals are going. So the crystals will be aligned at the north-south direction, all right, that is currently in place for the Earth. And by analyzing the spreading ridge and all of these crystals moving away from the North Atlantic Ridge, we can see a trend. We see that when that lava cooled, the geomagnetic field, the magnetic field was pointing this particular direction. When this lava cooled, it was pointing the opposite direction. Now, what it doesn't tell us is how long it took to go from one to the other, and what it doesn't tell us is, how reliable it is. How long between reversals can we expect? Because the lava cooling is just a snapshot. It's not like the spreading ridge is shooting out lava continuously for billions of years. Okay, it hasn't. It's sporadic. And so by looking at these ocean sediments, we're seeing sporadic information. We're just seeing data from the snapshot in time when that particular lava cooled. We don't see this tremendous continuous record ever. And that's been a perplexing thing. So that's why you hear people say, well, it could take thousands of years or hundreds of thousands of years for a geomagnetic reversal to occur. Okay. And studying these sediments has given us a rough idea. Okay. One thing that we know is that they're not all regular. Like, for instance, like a sunspot cycle. These reversals aren't a regular thing. The sunspot cycle on the sun heralds the same heliomagnetic reversal on the sun as the geomagnetic reversal here. Okay, on the sun that happens every 11 years like clockwork. Well, on the Earth it doesn't happen like that at all. It's very sporadic. Okay, we've had intervals that can be as short as 10,000 years between a reversal and as long as 25 million years between a reversal. That's good science for you. How do we know? How do we know when the next one may start? Are we in one now? We could be. All right. The problem is that as the lavas cool and crystallize, again, that's just a snapshot of the magnetic orientation at that time. So it's a far from continuous record, and we need continuity. We need to know. Now, on average, from studying these segments, we figure that these geomagnetic reversals occur every 200 to 300,000 years. Yet, at the moment, the last one was over 700,000 years ago. Well, so there goes that theory. All right. So what's happening? Now, we've also classically believed that it takes on average about 5,000 years for a reversal to actually happen, start to finish. Okay, one more time. 5,000 years is what it takes for a reversal to actually happen, start to finish. So all that doom and gloom and talk about massive destruction, what will happen? Well, will it happen? What can we expect? Well, there's a new study that can shed some light on this, and it's called a paleomagnetic study, paleomagnetism, or the study of historic magnetic fields on the Earth. and Japanese scientists did this, and they found this amazing record of the Earth's last geomagnetic reversal. And it's in a particular location called the Chiba Composite Section. And what's that? It's actually just ancient marine sedimentary fields that are on the surface, on land now, from upheaval that had occurred over time, but they're actually ancient marine beds. And this last reversal was known as the Matayama-Brunnes reversal. Don't worry about the name. Just understand we call it the MB reversal, okay? And this study focuses on this Chiba composite section, this location, because in this location, this section of marine sediments provides more of a continuous record of the magnetic field changes than the lava fields at the Mid-Atlantic Spreading Ridge or elsewhere can even provide. And the sediment layers take a long time to form. So a record of the magnetic field orientation is really much higher resolution and more complete. Okay, give you an example. It's like looking at the moon from 240,000 miles away here with a telescope, all right, versus seeing it with a lunar reconnaissance orbiter that's orbiting 60 miles above the moon. We see so much more. We see much more resolution. We see a lot more data, and it's much more finely refined. That's what the Chiba composite section is doing for us when it comes to geomagnetic reversals. Now you can see it. So what does this study show? What does this study show? Based on examination of this section of sediment layers, the last reversal took 20,000 full years to actually occur. 10,000 of those years were actually an unstable magnetic field where it was drifting a little bit here and there, but it took a full 20,000 years to occur. 20,000 years. So we thought that it was 5,000 years. The classic thought is that it was 5,000 years to actually occur. And it takes even longer. So what does that mean? What does that mean for life on Earth? Okay. In general, animals that rely on magnetic fields to navigate during migration could suffer multi-generational changes in their patterns. Okay, whales, sea turtles, birds. Okay, they figured it out over time, because this isn't the first time this has happened. We've been through quite a few of these. So, solar storms.
Would it be so gradual that they just adapt along the way?
Exactly so, Amanda. That's exactly right. Okay, and that's my point. Okay, but these magnetic reversals take so long that the animals just slowly adapt. Okay, but there are things that can cause tremendous instant reactions that are detrimental to populations, whole populations. Do you know what those are? There are some things that can happen on the Earth, but they're not based on the Earth. They're not based on geomagnetic reversal. There's something else that happens in our solar system that can cause animals to be all messed up. Do you know what that is? Yeah, I'm asking.
That occurs in our solar system?
Yeah. There's events that are somewhat rare, but they can cause blackouts. They can cause surges.
Solar flare?
Yes, very good. Very good, exactly. Solar flares are sometimes intense. We have flares called white light flares. We have X-class flares and beyond. There's many different kinds of flares, and these flares are basically coronal mass ejections, what we call CMEs, and material, highly charged, fast-moving material is blown off the sun by these flares. And sometimes we're right in the line of sight. We've had it happen before. I remember back in, 1986, I think it was, I actually saw the Northern Lights here in Connecticut over my head. I mean, you never see them like that. I was watching the Dark Crystal, actually. So whenever that came out, and I think it was 86, but you can check, guys. You can let me know. The night that came out, I was actually in a drive-in movie with all my nieces and nephews. They wanted to see it, so I brought them to see it. And I see over my head this amazing display, this amazing light show. I was like, whoa! I immediately got on the phone. I had to run to a phone, and I called the Auroral Event Network, and I had I told them what was going on. And then when I got home from the movie, it was still in full force. And I took my cameras and tripods and went up to a high hilltop nearby, and I started taking pictures. I never got to sleep that night. By the time 3 a.m. rolled around, the horizon, all the way, horizon to horizon in every direction, was pink. It looked eerie because it looked like a dim daylight, but it was all pink. We were underneath a gigantic aurora that was unbelievable, and it was all pink. Nitrogen, oxygen auroras. And so it reminded me of that Star Trek episode, For the World is Hollow and I Have Touched the Sky, about a group of people that actually lived inside an asteroid that didn't know it. And one of them made it to the surface, and the sky was pink. And he went to the edges of the mountain range and could touch the sky. And it was this pink interior area that had been, crafted for them to live out their lives. So it was really kind of an interesting episode, For the World is Hollow and I Have Touched the Sky, original series Star Trek. And that's the color it was. It's beautiful pink. So it really felt eerie. It looked eerie. And at 3 a.m, you don't expect there to be enough light to see anything. But it was bright. And so everywhere you look, it was just bland. You couldn't see any variation, no nothing. And that's what happens when an X-class flare hits. But what's it do to the animals? Okay. Well, during some of those flares, and especially the ones back in the late 80s, they found that whales were 4.3 times as likely to beach themselves during these intense solar storms as other times. That shows you right there that potentially there is a link between intense solar storms and how whales' interpretation of the magnetic field is altered by these high-energy protons and electrons streaming down through our magnetic field and causes them to have problems. So another problem is, and that's from the flares, but consider long-term what happens, right? During a reversal, say over thousands of years, the magnetic field strength is going to drop. And that's going to allow more dangerous radiation to reach the surface. Now, it's happened before, but we've gotten through it, right? As not only a human species, because the magnetic reversals have happened during human habitation times, even Homo sapiens time. But what does it mean for humans in particular? We know that radiation reaching the ground can be harmful to life, right? In 1859, there was a massive solar flare, the biggest ever seen in history. It struck the Earth. It was a coronal mass ejection of monumental size. It disrupted electrical service, wreaked havoc on a relatively primitive society at the time. Today, such an event, or a weakening magnetic field from a geomagnetic reversal, would allow similar radiation to reach the ground, but it would also affect satellites in orbit, okay? Over time, as the field weakened, because that's one of the things that happens during geomagnetic reversal, the magnetic field weakens, gets a little bit weaker. And when that happens, we would find that more of this radiation would reach the ground. More things would be affected. And we'd have to slowly retrofit satellites to be more shielded against ultraviolet radiation, for instance. We'd have to worry about, and I'll tell you why that matters, we'd have to worry about power communications and all that. And the geomagnetic reversal could produce these long-term problems, much like we see with the giant solar flares, which occur very quickly. But the result would be the same, but over a longer period of time with a geomagnetic reversal. So here's the upshot. You as a person wouldn't even notice anything much different than today, even at the worst of it. Your cell service might get disrupted. The compasses would certainly operate differently over time. hundreds, if not thousands of years of slow drift would take their toll, and the compass would be like pointing north, but it'd be east, it'd be pointing east. And what's going on? And it would all happen very gradually. And I have to emphasize that, very gradually. And the truth be told, as I said before, we could actually be in the makings of one of these now. Okay, we could be undergoing a geomagnetic shift now, but it's going to take thousands of years. And in that time, compasses and other equipment that relies heavily on the magnetic field will have been slowly retrofitted, just like Amanda said earlier. As birds and animals, other animals that use magnetic field, they'd slowly acclimate and make changes to their behaviors to account for the subtle changes. And it'll take centuries, perhaps, to accomplish a reversal, or hundreds or thousands of years even. But satellites will be reprogrammed to account for GPS drift and their magnetic heading alignments and stuff. Now, GPS, by the way, that's interesting. Okay, GPS would still work just fine, all right? Because GPS doesn't rely on the magnetic field, believe it or not. It just relies on you being able to connect to about 4 satellites to know your position. But if you calculate your heading, the magnetic heading to where you're going, that's what would be off. And you'd need a new program to correct that over time, slowly. As far as humans go, we would have to, we'd see an uptick in the visits to dermatologists for skin cancers. And the answer is, you ask the question, why? Now, you think, well, more UV radiation will reach the ground. No, not really. Okay, that's not what the problem would be. Effectively, not because the sun's radiation would get to the ground, because as the magnetic field wanes, okay, we know that the ozone layer protects us from the UV radiation from the sun. And ozone is not directly affected by the magnetic field. Okay, and now I know there's reasons why chlorofluorocarbons have depleted the ozone layer to some extent, and there have been ozone holes over Antarctica and so forth. But you got to understand that there's another reason why the ozone layer can be depleted, and it really has to do with the solar wind. Charged protons and electrons are the solar wind. They come streaming off from the sun, all right, and they're stopped by our magnetic field before it gets into our atmosphere. Those trapped particles caught in the magnetic field are what we call the Van Allen radiation belts, because those highly energetic particles are now trapped spiraling around in the magnetic field lines of our planet and create these radiation belts. Jupiter's is 20 times the magnitude of our own, for instance, and it's much farther away. So the magnetic field will be weakening over time as due to this incoming geomagnetic reversal, and that means less trapped solar wind in this weakening magnetic field. So more solar wind reaches the upper atmosphere, and that's the ticket right there. That's what causes all the problems, because these high energy protons and electrons will cause a production of something called nitrogen oxides in our atmosphere. Nitrogen oxides are a well-known ozone depleter, okay? And the ozone layer would then weaken all over the world. And that's when UV light would now reach the ground in stronger and stronger amounts over time. And as the field oscillated in strength, during this reversal, more and more UV would reach the ground, and more people going to the beach wouldn't use any more sunscreen than normal over time, perhaps, unless they didn't pay any attention, if they didn't pay any attention, and they would end up with skin cancers. So that's what could happen to us, all right? So really, in the end, I can say it this way, it's not really a big deal, and it's certainly not a planet killer, and it's certainly not going to create a major extinction event, right? Not at all, okay? It's just that over a long period of time, that is good for us. If it's a long period of time, then we are all set, okay? We can then account for it. We can take advantage of that time period to make sure that we have the ability to put in effective measures to counteract, all right? But in general, the large coronal mass ejections from the sun, the large flares, are far more dangerous. These are instant effectors on the planet. Instant. When astronauts are in the space shuttle Discovery or Columbia, when they're going on into space, they had to consider if there were going to be flares. When astronauts were on the moon, and yes, we went to the moon, they had to consider whether there were any flares. And they would have to retreat if there were flares coming. But it would spell the end for them if they got hit by the full brunt of an X-class flare on the moon. So that was really taking a chance, to be honest. And then, if we look at the space station, the International Space Station, when there are these big flare events, the things that happen are that the Van Allen radiation belts are overwhelmed by more protons and electrons and solar wind, right? These CMEs, these coronal mass ejections, can hit our magnetic field, our magnetosphere, and swell it. And then these radiative particles can affect people on the International Space Station. And when that happens, they have to retreat into special modules or habitat modules on the ISS that are designed to shield them from this radiation. So space is trying to kill us every which way, and Earth is not really the most habitable world to live on. And that's another thing we'll talk about later, perhaps. But that is the gist of it. Okay, the Japanese study shows that it takes a lot longer for these geomagnetic reversals. They happen very gradually. And we will find ourselves able to cope. But it's those big coronal mass ejections that can kill us and be dangerous. All right. So that's something to worry about. But when it happens, these CMEs don't always head for the Earth. Sometimes they do. Most times they don't. Because they happen quite often, but most times they're not coming anywhere near us, which is kind of interesting. That's the topic for that. That's Daryl's topic that he sent us. It was about the geomagnetic reversal. Comments, Amanda, besides you having to go to break?
Besides it's going to break, that is for the magnetic flip for Earth. Galaxy wants to know if the moon and other planets also have this magnetic flip. Maybe we could discuss that on the other side of the break.
What a good idea.
Ooh. Like how I segue that?
Tantalizing. Very tantalizing. Well done, Amanda. Okay, folks. We'll be right back on the other side of the break. Stick with us. This is Sky Tour Radio, and Amanda and I will be right back.
Hi, folks. It's troubling times, and fear is pushing emotions, which in turn pushes health the wrong direction. Do you ever get an ache because life is uneasy? Try Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com. Life Change Tea works on your digestive tract, helping to move food through quicker and comfortably so your health is spot on. Life Change Tea may not help with world issues, but it will help with your digestive issues. A glass a day helps keep the intruders away. So, change your life today. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. If your health game is off, get on by ordering Life Change Tea. GetTheTea.com. And while you're on our site, look around at the great non-GMO organic supplements. And if you're a sales shopper, go to our specials page and see what's for you. I've been drinking the tea for 12 years, and I'm sure glad for its health benefits. Again, that's GetTheTea.com. GetTheTea.com. The tea that makes you go.
When you're in the house for longer periods of time, you can see them flying or running across the floor. Ooh, yuck. They're unhealthy, gross, and disgusting. Bugs. I loathe bugs. We keep a clean home, but occasionally bugs show up. Well, I found something that is tougher than bugs. Orange Guard. On contact, it kills hidden bugs, including ants, roaches, and fleas. Plus, Orange Guard is a residual repellent. All of the ingredients of Orange Guard are on the FDA generally recognized as safe list. Orange Guard may be used around food, humans, and pets. It comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. OrangeGuard, available at orangeguard.com, Whole Foods, and Ace Hardware.
The Liberator Rocket Heater will heat your home for free. The highly efficient Liberator Rocket Heater has no moving parts. It's safe and strong, constructed of quarter-inch steel. So like all things made in the USA, it's built to last. Uses any kind of wood, sticks, even scrap in its gravity-fed firebox. And it heats workshops, homes, garages, outbuildings, industrial areas, and barns. Watch the video of this blast furnace stove in action. Visit RocketHeater.com. That's RocketHeater.com.
Hey everyone, this is Nick Redfern and you're listening to Sky Tour Radio with Mark D'Antonio on the KGRA network, and so are the Men in Black.
Now you have the inside contact for alternative talk radio. The Planet. KGRARadio.com.
Hey, welcome back to Sky Tour Radio. It's Mark and Amanda here tonight with you. It is a beautiful November 1st, and I want to just compliment Amanda, let her know that in spite of the fact that she's under the weather, she is really a trooper tonight, doing a fantastic job. And I do want to say that this next story that we have is part of Amandastronomy, as we talked about. She brought us this story, and I explored it and found out a lot more about it. Share it with you. Now, we know as humans that we are explorers. We want to explore. Every mission that we have done with NASA has been to go and look for signs of past or present life, right? We're explorers. We try to find life beyond our own. And that's kind of cool. But we know that the moon can't harbor life for us. So what we want to do in life at all, actually, so what we want to do is see if the moon could support us. It's near enough so we could actually, put a colony there. I see a future where there'll be lunar cities of types. People will migrate to the moon for work or otherwise. And it's going to have to be pretty colorful because the moon is only certain colors. It's not just gray, by the way. The moon, if you've been to Sky Tour live stream, we've actually looked at the moon in regular white light color, and it's not gray. You'll see there's orange soil, there are brown areas, and there's areas with different types of coloration. The moon is far from just gray. All right. But it doesn't have reds. It doesn't have blue. It doesn't have any of these other colors that we're so fond of. So a colony on the moon is going to have to be very brightly colored. And probably the interior walls are going to be very brightly colored. And they'll be colored in such a way that psychologically it'll make you feel good. Okay. And that's sort of a big problem with colonies like that in a desolate place like that. You want to be able to figure out what people can handle for a long period of time. And NASA's done studies about that. And it'll become an issue at some point because NASA's made a rather monumental discovery on the moon. And before we talk about it directly, let's talk about missions to the moon that actually were in search of water. When we go to the moon, we want to find water because water is how we sustain ourselves, right? And so knowing that, we took a old rocket booster and we crashed it into a permanently shaded crater on the south pole of the moon. That crater was called Cabeus, C-A-B-E-U-S, Cabeus crater. And the purpose of crashing it into the moon was to see if what was thrown up in the air contained ice, frozen water. It turns out it did. There was plenty of ice. And that mission was called the L-Cross mission. It was the LCROSS mission. And L-Cross was meant to show that there was water on the moon in these permanently shaded regions. It was positive. But guess what? That's old news. Now, a high-flying converted 747 aircraft with a large telescope called SOFIA detected water. All right, but it detected it in a day-lit crater, a crater that was lit by a regular lunar day. This changes everything for considering a long-term lunar presence. And that SOFIA telescope, SOFIA, that stands for Stratospheric Observatory for Infrared Astronomy. We love our acronyms, us astronomers. SOFIA discovered water in these soils. It was in a crater that's none other than Stanley Kubrick's favorite crater and perhaps Daryl's favorite crater, Clavius. Clavius crater is a well-known crater south of Tycho, near the south side of the moon, on the southern side of the moon, I should say, on the near side. We can see it, and we have seen it in SkyTour Livestream. It has a gorgeous ringlet of like 5 craters that are inside its diameter. They're very distinctive, and the craterlets go from largest to the southern end to the smallest left of center. And it's 143 miles in diameter, or 231 kilometers in diameter. And this finding that there's water in Clavius crater, of all places, complements the L-Cross mission findings, but it also means we're no longer constrained to basically have a colony in just one place on the moon. We don't have to be at the poles. We can be elsewhere. We can be anywhere on the moon. But there's some considerations, okay? And let's discuss the lunar colony thing. If anyone has questions, we can do that, okay? We can cover that as well. But, you know, the U.S. has a long history of lunar travel, and China is planning on landing on the moon with a crew by 2036. Japan by 2030. And the U.S. wants to send another crewed mission to the moon by 2024. Jeff Bezos, Amazon fame, wants to land his Starship on the moon and create an outpost. But you know what? Those are all wonderful, romantic ideas, but what are the practical considerations? If you're going to land on the near side of the moon, let's say Clavius crater, here's a question. How would you get power to your colony? Well, what are ways we get power here? Amanda, you're with us, right?
I'm here.
So what ways do we get power? If we want to get power from something, what could we use to get power?
The sun.
The sun, yeah, right. We can have solar panels, right?
We're talking on the moon. I don't know. Yeah. Does the moon have wind?
No.
No. See, I didn't think so. I don't know. Water if we can find it, but I don't know how feasible that is on the moon.
Well, that's the thing, that if you're looking for power on the moon, okay, we can use the sun, and the sun is a pretty effective one, right? Because there's no atmosphere. We'd have blazing sunlight. So we could set up solar panels, huh? And these solar panels would deliver all the power we need, probably more than we need. But there's a problem. The moon isn't always daylit. If you're in Clavius crater goes into shadow, all right, for 354 hours. That's how long the lunar night is. Because remember, it takes the moon all this time to go around the Earth, 28 days, right? And in that time, the sun is slowly changing its angle. The Earth rotates once around every 24 hours. That makes it easy to use some solar panels and store the energy in batteries to use overnight, and then in the daytime use it again. Could we do the same thing on the moon? Well, 354-hour long night, we could maybe create some batteries that can store solar power, but that's really not practical.
Mirrors up there.
What's that?
We put mirrors up there and reflect the sunlight to the shady spots.
Actually, that's believe it or not, that's actually a potential mission, is to have permanent reflectors that will actually reflect sunlight. And that was for places on Earth as well. So that is a possibility, but there's a lot to that. There's a lot to that, and it's a really difficult undertaking. Okay, and as you said before, wind is certainly not an option. Now, a potential option is nuclear reactors, right? Well, that's a good idea, but they are dangerous. And you're going to launch one on a rocket? We don't want to really launch a full-blown nuclear reactor on a rocket. Okay. There's a smaller version that kind of uses radioactive isotopes, and that's called a radioisotope thermoelectric generator, or RTG. We have one that powers the Curiosity rover on Mars. Okay, and it's still kicking after 8 years on Mars. It powered Cassini, a version of one powered Cassini and other spacecraft as well. Okay, but how would we get power with a 354-hour-long night? That's a tough one. Now that brings us back to the poles. Up at the North Pole, there's a crater up at the north called Shackleton, which actually gets nearly the full amount of sunlight throughout the whole lunar cycle, because it's at the northern pole. And so it only is briefly in shadow. So maybe that is the only place we could go. But if we use RTGs, these radioisotope thermoelectric generators, like the spacecraft have used, that's great on a small scale. But keep in mind that, an acre of solar panels delivers, 4 megawatts of power. I don't know how we're going to be able to produce 4 megawatts of power to a colony with just a few RTGs. And if they fail, then the colony is going to die. So that's still a question. So we're still talking some type of reactor. Maybe we have to wait until we can do fusion, and then we can have a fusion reactor which does all the power for us. But it will probably have to be built there. Really interesting stuff, and so you see, going to the moon and making a colony, everyone thinks, what a great idea. But don't forget, we need power, and power is the biggest nut to crack for this, the biggest one. So all of you out there hearing this, think about that. Now, the lunar soils do have helium-3 and other materials in the soil, okay, that can be used to generate other materials. Now, helium-3 is a potential fusion product, fuel. So if we have fusion, then we have a source of potential fuel. Helium-3 is sort of it short circuits needing some other preliminary fuels. Getting us right to helium-3 is a source fuel that can then take us directly to the next step. So we only have basically one step to go to do fusion. So that's a possibility. There's plenty of that there as well. So, and we have plenty of water there as well. So we could certainly get the water. We could certainly get fuel, but we can't certainly get fusion to work yet. And we can't get power throughout the 354-hour-long lunar night. So that is a little issue. And there's no batteries that anybody knows of so far that could be used for 354 hours. Not unless we built them on site and just had a little industry up there that all it did was build batteries that would store energy from the solar panels. You build them up, and they can't have too many losses. They got to be almost perfect batteries. So what is the likelihood of that? Not very likely. So it's a big nut to crack. Don't forget, it's power. It's all about the power. People think, let's have a lunar plant up there, but you want lights on at night. How are you going to do that? What's going to power the lights? Now, another thing too, okay, so we can get our water, and let's assume we could even take care of that. Let's say we can take care of that power problem. This new data shows that we'll be able to make water. Okay, that's great. But what about food? Well, to make food, we would need to actually grow some crops. And to grow crops, we need some indoor facility to do that. Okay, that's fine. We can probably build a inflatable habitat. I call them inflatatats. Okay, and that'll be great. And they need a certain amount of light. Actually, they're pretty much light guzzlers, right? These some of these crops. And during the daytime on the moon, it'll be okay. But that long night again, How are we going to be able to grow the plants? How are we going to be able to provide enough light so that photosynthesis can occur on the plants? Don't forget, we don't have insects to pollinate these plants, so it's all going to have to be done manually. And don't forget, the lunar soil doesn't have nitrogen and it doesn't have potassium, so it's basically a sterile material. It's not going to provide the ability to grow anything. But then the Chinese Chang 3, I think, one of its experiments was to try and germinate a plant up there. And I can't remember which plant they did, but they actually worked. They could germinate a plant. Now, they added what they had to make it work. But the lunar soil did work to some extent. They had to add, I think, nitrogen and potassium to make it work. But when they did, it lasted. It was great. Then when the lunar night came along, without the power, what happened? You know what happened. The plants died because they couldn't stay alive with the long lunar night. They froze and were just, destroyed. Now, the other thing is, we talked about this before, solar flares can kill or damage plant cells quite easily. The moon could get blasted by UV radiation directly from the sun. I think that makes a lot of the prospect of having plants on the moon get dismissed. But the issue is, we can protect from that. We can put these things in buildings that won't see the sunlight directly, but then we got to light them artificially. So it implies we need to have some type of artificial cover that can go down in case of solar flares. And we can have some kind of way to louvers that will allow light in. Okay, but see what I'm getting at? We're going to need construction. We need some special construction. And that means maintenance, So the UV radiation would need to be partially blocked and be able to be blocked entirely should there be a solar flare that comes through that brings these high energy particles streaming in that can also cause tremendous damage. So using electric grow lights is a great idea. But then again, an acre on Earth, get about 4 megawatts at noon. And, these RTGs, these radioisotope thermoelectric generators, they may be workable to provide power, but you can't do it alone without another power storage or source. And that's something that would be really, really, it's difficult. This is why, you see, we don't have a colony on the moon yet. It's indeed, it's true. Getting to the moon is hard. And also, we have the new Orion space capsule and so forth. Going to the moon for short stays right now is still something that we would consider doing, I'm sure. In fact, there's missions to do that. But doing a permanent presence on the moon is going to require a lot more technology that we don't have yet. And that's in the power arena specifically. For a small facility that has like 2 astronauts in it, then a radioisotope thermoelectric generator of a certain size, because they can be made in various sizes and capacities, might do it. A couple of them might do it. You might say we'll have 4 up there. One is the one that provides the power, and the other 3 are backups in case one of them goes down. But if all 4 go down, then the astronauts will not survive. They can have all the water they want, but it'll be frozen, as well as they will be frozen. So I don't see a way for this to happen anytime soon. So what about you, Amanda? Do you have any ideas or questions that we could answer?
Not myself, but I know there were a few comments about possible elements we could use, like helium-3 and hydrogen from ice. Galaxy suggests.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
just throwing out theories. People are wondering how we can make this happen. So that's good.
It is. I mean, but it is our biggest problem, isn't it? Now, yes, we can get hydrogen from the ice, but you have to think of the chemical process required to separate the hydrogen from the ice. That requires energy. And now we're back to the old thing, how we're going to use the energy to separate the hydrogen from the ice, right? Drive off the oxygen. Let's use the oxygen, right? Yay. But that'd be great. But that's a problem. Now, also keep in mind, on Mars, the MOXIE experiment with the Perseverance rover, that's Mars oxygen extraction in situ, right? They're gonna make oxygen from the carbon dioxide atmosphere, right? And one of the byproducts of that is carbon monoxide, CO, carbon and oxygen. But then you get O2 out of that as well. And we don't have that availability on the moon. So to make breathable oxygen, we have to make it chemically as well, but we're not going to have a plethora or a vast abundance of carbon dioxide from which to use a MOXIE-like experiment that we could use on Mars to create oxygen on the moon. And the reason you want to create oxygen at all is obvious for breathing, but also to create rocket fuel, chemical propellants that we currently use. So that's something that we would actually be interested in trying to do. So how would we create oxygen on the moon? There's a number of chemical reactions that we can do. Again, chemical reactions require what? Energy. But we could generate oxygen from our water and possibly from other compounds in the lunar surface. And usually this requires ovens, basically, for lack of a better term. They heat up the samples, and a small amount of one substance over another will come out. And let's suppose we had a substance that could boil off, say, some oxygen. Well, we don't breathe O, we breathe O2, diatomic oxygen. So if we could get oxygen separated from water, well, that's great. But now you have H2, the two hydrogens are gone, and then we have the water left over, okay, when you break those bonds. Well, you do that, and what happens? Well, now you have O, but what about O2? You see, there's an entire host of chemical reactions that have to happen for us to generate breathable oxygen. And to do that from lunar soils might be possible. But at what energy cost? Everything has to be tied back to energy, folks. Everything. And unfortunately, when you have a 354-hour-long night cycle on the moon, that's a problem. In terms of Mars, it would actually be easier to do all of this at Mars. Going to the moon is going to be much more difficult, and it's our nearest neighbor. If the trip to Mars doesn't bother you, if I had a choice, go to the moon or go to Mars, I would go to Mars. It might take 10 months to get there, but guess what? When I got there, at least I know that I'd be able to make oxygen, O2, breathable oxygen, using a MOXIE-type generator like the Perseverance rover. The Perseverance rover's MOXIE experiment's only the size of a car battery, so it's really small. It's nowhere near a full production size. A production size would generate lots and lots of O2 from the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And that would give us our oxygen to breathe. And because Mars has a day cycle, which is just a little bit different from ours, we'll have a day, we'll have a night. Now, the sun is not as bright, but we can counter that with larger panels, larger arrays for the same amount of sunlight required, right? And we won't have to sip power like the rovers do now, because we'll be able to use something with a little bit more power, because we'll have more square footage, because we'll be there in a sort of a permanent settlement. And then if we go to to an area on Mars where we have access to, say, some of the underground areas, like the volcanic pits that are there that are no longer volcanoes, but now just empty pits. There's several craters on Mars that have such a feature. Then we'll be able to go down and create a more permanent settlement down there that's free of the ultraviolet radiation that could strike us on the surface and cause us to have health issues. So we wouldn't need as much shielding. So, but again, it comes down to power. On Mars, it would be easier. We would not have wind power on Mars because the wind is the atmosphere is so thin. It's like 0.08% of like Earth's. And so, think of the surface dusting on Mars, that light surface coating of lighter rust-colored material. It's actually like talcum powder. Now, when you blow on talcum powder on a counter, it goes airborne immediately and goes everywhere, right? On Mars, you need a wind that's really, really high to just raise that off the planet's surface. Really, okay? So power like that, wind power, not a prospect. So we'd have to use some type of solar power, even with the more distant sun. And then coupled with battery storage and RTGs, these radio isotope thermoelectric generators. But you guys have done it again. You've wasted another 2 hours with Sky Tour Radio, as I always repeat from I used to love Car Talk with Click and Clack, the Tappet Brothers on that wonderful show. I love that show. But you have wasted another 2 hours. Hopefully it wasn't a complete waste for you guys. I love it very much, and I hope you do too. I'm kidding, of course. I want to thank Amanda. I want to thank Daryl for providing us with that wonderful geomagnetic reversal story to check out. Amanda, you're a trooper, even though you're not feeling well tonight. I appreciate, and I know everybody appreciates how much you do for all of them. And I want to thank you publicly for that.
Oh, thank you. No, it was a wonderful evening as always. I always enjoy my time here, and I hope the listeners do too. And thank you for Bill for stepping in when I wasn't feeling 100% up to it, for helping ease the load.
Bill's a great guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we don't give Bill enough credit. Bill's the reason I'm on Sky Tour Radio, just so you know. You've told you before, but he is the reason, and he's also part of the reason why I have Sky Tour Livestream as well. And I guess, oh man, does that mean that he's going to have to now own part of Sky Tour West because he started Sky Tour East here and helped me do that? So now, oh man. I don't know. Do I even own anything anymore? When I'm going to have to, Jesus, give it all away. That's all right. Hey, guys. You guys have a good evening. Thank you for joining us on Sky Tour Radio tonight on the 1st of November. And Sky Tour Radio should be back next weekend, but then we're going to be off for a couple of weeks because I have a filming commitment I have to do and will not be able to get a show done for those weeks, but we'll keep you posted. So remember, guys, when you go out, keep looking up, all right?
Good night.